You're listening to The Jake Asman Show on the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Here we go on a Wednesday edition of the program. Great to have you in. Hope you enjoyed a little NBA basketball last night, NHL playoffs. We'll get to all that and much more in regards to the NHL a bit later. But we start with the NBA, and we start with what was the game of the night featuring the Lakers and the Suns. It wasn't a must-win for the Lakers, but it was pretty damn close. You can't go down 0-2. I know they're the road team, and, you just got to maintain home court advantage. A series doesn't start, Jake, until, the road team wins one. Well, the eye test would tell you if the Lakers were down 0-2, I don't think they're coming back against the Phoenix Suns. So last night, they needed to play well, and they did. Anthony Davis, who had 13 points in game one, you knew that wasn't going to happen for the second game in a row. He went out there and scored 34 points, had 10 rebounds, 7 assists. He bounced back. And you knew he would because he's done it in his entire career, especially with the Lakers. And ultimately, when you look at these two teams, the difference maker for the Suns is the fact that they have Chris Paul. And Chris Paul is just the ultimate gamer and finds ways to make everyone around him better. And he instills that belief when you play with him that you're going to win, no matter what the odds are. You feel like when you have Chris Paul, you have a chance. And ultimately, when Chris Paul is clearly not right in this game, you just knew the Suns did not have enough to pull it off. Chris Paul only played 23 minutes. He took only 5 shots, none of which occurred in the second half, and he scored only 6 points. He played just 2 minutes and 38 seconds in the fourth quarter. And the biggest concern you have with the Suns is the health of Chris Paul. I'm not worried about Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton making their playoff debuts. They're really good players. They'll be fine. Chris Paul, though, is the major concern for this team. When he's healthy, he's an MVP out there. I thought Chris Paul should have received more votes for the MVP award than he did. He wasn't even a finalist, meaning he didn't come in the top 3. I think that's a mistake. The Suns are not the 2 seed in the West if Chris Paul doesn't have the year he's had. But the issue you have with Paul is this time of year, he always struggles to stay healthy. I'm based here in Houston. I don't need to remind Rockets fans about Chris Paul's hamstring. That's a forever moment in the history of the Houston Rockets, the ultimate what if. Chris Paul doesn't pull his hamstring in Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals. I think the Rockets beat Golden State, and they beat the Cavs in the NBA Finals. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, but that's the concern you have with Paul. He struggles to stay healthy this time of year, and the only reason why he was healthy last year in the playoffs, in the bubble, is because he had 3 months off beforehand. So Chris Paul is hurt. To me, the series is over. I just don't think the Suns have enough. Chris Paul's the ultimate difference maker. And clearly he was nowhere close to being able to, put forth a Chris Paul-like effort in this game. And Chris Paul is tough as you know what. So if he can't play, I think that should tell you a lot that it's very serious. And they play again tomorrow night. Let's see how close to 100% he is for that game in LA, Game 3. Because if he's not close to what Chris Paul needs to be to have that type of impact, they're not going to win. It's as simple as that. He's that important to that team. Monty Williams, when asked about Chris Paul last night, said it was his decision to take Paul out of the game.
I took him out. There was all me just looking at him hold his arm the way that he was holding it. I just couldn't watch him, run like that. He's trying to make plays. He battled. He's a warrior. We all know that. And I just made a decision to take him out.
He's a warrior, but the problem is he's had issues that have kept him out of big playoff series before, big playoff moments. And you just knew down the stretch, when the Suns went on the run, you give them credit for making this a game. When the Lakers were up 16, you felt like it was over, and the Suns made it interesting down the stretch. They forced AD and LeBron to have to make some clutch plays late. But if Chris Paul's there down the stretch, maybe they win. With him not there, with him just being able to play 2 minutes and 38 seconds in the fourth quarter, I never for a second thought LeBron and AD would let the Suns win that game. Never for a second. So it's obvious, but you have to say it. If Chris Paul's not close to what he needs to be, the series is over. The Lakers probably win in 5. He's that important to that team. As good as Booker is, as good as Ayton is, as good as some of the role players the Suns have on that team, Chris Paul is the straw that stirs the drink. He's that team. And when you don't watch Chris Paul every night, maybe you don't get to appreciate his greatness. Living here in Houston for 3 years, I watched 2 seasons of Chris Paul with the Rockets, and you just go, wow, when you watch him play. His impact is felt when he's not even touching the ball. And obviously what he brings from a leadership and the intangible standpoint can't be replaced. So that series has a chance to still be special, but you hope Chris Paul could come back. If not, I think the Lakers win this in 5. He's that important for the Suns' chances. And then let's get to the Clippers and the Mavs from last night. My goodness. The basketball gods are sending a message to the Clippers. The Clippers deserve to be down 0-2. They deserve to be down 0-2 after they tanked themselves down the stretch. They lost games to the Thunder and the Rockets on purpose so they could avoid the LA Lakers in the second round. And it's unbelievable that the Clippers are now down 0-2, going back to Dallas, and are looking at another playoff flameout. They're staring another playoff flameout directly in the face. And I don't know what you do if you're the Clippers. Like, what move is going to be made? You already fired the coach. Doc Rivers is gone. He blew a 3-1 lead. You got rid of him. This is a team that's never been to the conference finals. They sold their soul, sold their future to get Kawhi and Paul George, traded away all their draft capital, all the pick swaps. And it looks like through 2 years of that big two they brought together, it's going to be blow 3-1 lead in the second round and follow that up by, I don't know, maybe getting swept by the Dallas Mavericks when the Clippers were the team that tanked the last couple games to try and position themselves for the best playoff matchup. I mean, they have no answer for Doncic. And last night, Kawhi Leonard goes out there, scores 41 points, and it's still not enough. I don't know what you do. And Kawhi could opt out after this year. Kawhi could opt out and become an unrestricted free agent. What happens then if Kawhi Leonard opts out? Can the Clippers convince him to come back? I mean, Kawhi wanted to go there. Kawhi wanted to go to the team in LA to let him live on the West Coast. He didn't want to be part of another super team with LeBron and AD. What do you do? I don't know how you get that much better if you're the Clippers. You're kind of tapped out. Paul George just has not been, I think, what they thought they were getting. But what we have learned over really the last 2 years is that Paul George is a very good player, but is he truly a number 2 on a team that's going to win a title? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe we'll be eating our words. Maybe the Clippers will go to Dallas and they'll surprise us all and take 2 there to even the series. But does anyone really believe that? I mean, last night was ugly. They made a bit of a run at the end to make it somewhat interesting, but they just don't have enough, man. They just do not have enough. And I don't know what you do because you already fired the coach. I mean, that last night, the Clippers just found new ways to lose. They had some terrible turnovers, real sloppy fouls, and their 3-point defense was garbage. They deserved to lose that game. And the basketball gods rewarded the Mavs because the Clippers tried to tank themselves away from the Lakers. That's how I look at it. But it kind of pains me to root for the Mavericks because I'm no Kristaps Porzingis fan, so it's kind of a lose-lose for me there. Anyhow, Kawhi, I know you like the West Coast, but there's a team in New York that would love to have you if you were to opt out. I know you love the West Coast, but let me tell you, Madison Square Garden would love to have you. And I think you'd like playing there. I'm just saying. Player option, Kawhi Leonard. That will be the big storyline in the coming weeks if the Clippers get bounced here in the first round. And then finally, you look at what the Nets did to the Celtics. They're now up, of course, 2-0. They scored 130 points. I watched the first quarter of this game. That's all I needed to see. The Nets put up 40 points in the first quarter. And I don't even think James Harden scored a point in the first quarter and they put up 40 points. That's how much firepower this team has. Joe Harris has 7 threes. They're not losing. When you consider the fact that Harris is going to continue to get wide open looks because there's so much defensive attention on the big three, I don't know how you stop the Nets. The Celtics certainly can't. Maybe a better team can. But they just might have so much offense, so much firepower, that the fact that they didn't play together that much in the regular season, it might not even end up mattering. And it pains me to say, because I'm not rooting for the Nets by any stretch of the imagination, but they might have just too much firepower. They might have too much. Blake Griffin attempted 2 dunks in, like 30 seconds last night. He didn't attempt a dunk in like 2 years with the Pistons. I mean, he's playing really well. They have depth. They obviously have a big three that's locked in. Durant could score at any point. Harden could be this distributor on this team. When you think how much stress was on Harden when he had to do everything for the Rockets, he had the highest usage rate in the NBA. In the history of basketball, no player had a higher usage rate than James Harden with the Rockets. It's a walk in the park with what he has to do now with the Nets. He doesn't get doubled. He gets to be a point guard. He still gets to score when he wants. It's like the dream setup for James Harden. Like light years different what he's doing here than what he had to do with the Rockets. The Nets just might have too much firepower, ultimately. So they're up 2-0. And, it's only 2 games. Obviously, the level of competition will significantly increase in the second round if they were to play the Bucks. I think the Bucks would have a real chance to beat them, but sometimes you just watch the Nets play and you're like, yeah, those 3 guys only played 8 games together, but does it really matter? They're going to score 130 points every night. Is there a team that can match them? They might have just too much offense to be stopped. So 3 games in the NBA last night. Obviously, a couple of big ones later tonight. The biggest one, Madison Square Garden, Knicks-Hawks, Game 2. Trae Young, get ready, baby. MSG is going to be coming for you. Should be a lot of fun. We'll talk more about that coming up later in the show. But your calls next, 800-224-2004. Plus, Matt LaFleur responded to the comments his quarterback, maybe his former quarterback pretty soon, responded to the comments that Mr. Aaron Rodgers made to Kenny Payne on SportsCenter the other night. We will react to those comments coming up next. This is the Jake Asman Show. We're with you here on a Wednesday morning. Stay tuned to Sports Map Radio.
The Jake Asman Show.
One of the stars on the Pittsburgh Steelers, wide